Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Pete here with MixBetterNow.com, and today I want to show you a few different ways that we can enhance the parallel compression in our mix. Let's jump on in and check it out. All right, so I have a very basic setup going on here on Pro Tools. I have one instrument track open, I have one auxiliary send set up as a parallel compression chain, and I have a master fader, okay? On the instrument track, I have Easy Drummer open, and we are using the Blues Kit on here. Now, the reason that we're using the Blues Kit is because I find it's one of the most natural sounding drum kits in the entire library of all the different styles of drums that they have available. A lot of them, they will, heavily compress and EQ some of the drums, and these I feel sound pretty natural. The only thing that I'm doing after this is just a very tiny bit of EQ with a high pass filter here going to about 30 hertz, and then we're taking just a little bit of 400 out, and it's a very natural sound. So here's what the drums sound like. Okay, so one thing that I want to stress here is that although we are doing this to drums, as I find parallel compression is most used on the drum kit, but this can be applied the same way to any other instrument in your session, whether it's bass or vocals or guitars, etc. I just find that the most amount of people I see using parallel compression happens to be on drums, so I figured let's listen to some drums. So on my parallel compression chain here, we have a UAD Fatso Senior compressor all set up. This is something that I use all the time on my drums when I am compressing in parallel. I just happen to really love the way that this compressor sounds. So we have all the three buttons pressed in here. So it's got the bus, the general purpose, and the spank setting. Fastest attack possible, fastest release possible, and then I'm also using the high pass filter or the side chain here. Have it set to 120 hertz. The reason being, I want to let a lot of the low end from the kick drum pass through, so it doesn't really affect the compressor a whole lot and start clamping down on the low end. I am using unity gain on my send here, so I have that set to 0. This is just how I like to use my parallel compression, and then I will get the volume from that over here on my return volume. So let's go ahead and unmute this now, and you can hear what it sounds like with the parallel compression in. Okay, so as you can see from the metering, we're doing anywhere from 5 to maybe 10, 15 dB of compression. Like I said, I really love the way that this thing sounds. And again, if I didn't have the high pass on, the kick would be sending the compressor into compression a whole lot quicker than it is doing right now. So a very common practice, on parallel compression is to just set the compression up, send whatever you want to send it to, and then return it back to the audio. Well, a couple things that I like to do to sort of kind of trick out my parallel compression bus is I like to do things by adding other effects after the compression. So something that you might commonly see on an effect send, like a reverb or a delay, is you might see somebody EQing before or after the effect. I like to do the same thing on my parallel compression. It's another way to basically add some more tonality and blend it back in with the dry signal, okay? So the dry signal being the drums and the wet signal being the parallel chain here. So we'll put the compressor up top. And one of my favorite additive EQs to use is the API 550A. This is the one from UAD. I really like the way that this one sounds. So something I'll commonly do is reach for what I would call a vibey EQ, which is something that's going to kind of maybe have some transformers in it or some tubes, something that's going to give the sound a little bit of analog sweetness. So here we are boosting 4 dB at 3K, so we're really getting some of that mid-range to kind of cut through. I find the 3K on the snare drum, you're really going to hear it. It's going to kind of crack and sizzle a little bit more. And then I'm pushing up a 4 dB shelf at 10K. All right, let's take a listen to what that sounds like. That's off. On. So the main reason that I will do this in the context of a mix is so that, for example, if I wanted to add some brightness or some sizzle to my drum kit, a great way to add that EQ in is on your parallel chain behind your compressor. So that way it's a little bit more gentle and a little bit more natural sounding. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple other EQs that I might use. Something like a 1073, you can't go wrong with. What we're doing here is we're high passing to 50 hertz, something that I will commonly call the 1073 kick trick is where I'll engage the high pass filter at 50 hertz, and then I'll use the 35 hertz low shelf, and then I'll boost that, and it adds a really nice low bump. You'll hear it on the kick drum. Again, we're doing 3.2K here. We're boosting it a few dB, and then we have the high shelf around 12K. Let's take a listen. Off, on, okay, so I just muted the parallel bus. Can bring it back in. And I really like the way the 1073 sounds. This is the Shep 73 from Waves. It doesn't matter which one you use. Really, the point here is that we're just kind of adding some different EQ frequencies to really kind of give a different tonality to the drum kit. Okay, something else that I really like to use after my compression in my parallel chain here is some saturation. So we're going to pull open the brand new amazing black box analog design H2 from Brainworks and Plugin Alliance. And I have this dialed in, and I have gone ahead and level matched this so that when we bypass it in and out, we're actually not getting an increase in volume here. We're driving some of the pentode and the triode tubes here, which is going to give us some even and odd order harmonics. And then I also have the parallel saturation knob on here turned on. Also have the air band, or the air amount, whatever you want to call it here, engaged. And what this is going to do is it's going to add a little bit of 10K to the signal. I'll start with it bypassed, and then I will bring it in. Here we go. So this is a really great way to treat your drums on the parallel chain to give it some distortion, to give it some saturation so that it can, in fact, really cut through the mix and be heard in a pleasant way. Okay, so one other plugin that I want to take a look at here that can actually do both things is the Access EQ from Sli-Fi. So if we get rid of that, we'll bypass the API. The Access EQ from Sli-Fi, who's made by Gregory Scott from UBK Kush, fantastic plugins, fantastic hardware. This is essentially his take on an API. We have a couple different settings here, what makes this unique is we can put this up the middle and there is a variable EQ section here, whereas over here we have a fixed section. Up the middle is variable. I am going to use the fixed section though, but up on the top left there's an amazing saturation knob that I love the way it sounds. And then we also have a our output here so we can level match. So let's go ahead and dial in some EQ and see how it sounds with the saturation knob. Some 50. Little 3K. Saturation. So as you can hear from some of the things that I'm doing, we got the drums to sound absolutely massive. Boosting a little bit of 50 hertz on the bottom here by 2 dB. Then we're taking some more 3K here by 4 dB and a little bit of 10K, this time with a bell, not with a shelf. And again, this saturation knob just makes everything that you put through it sound bigger and warmer and fatter, which is awesome. So in tandem with the Axis and the Fatso before it, we get some really, really big drum sounds. I'll go ahead and pull the whole parallel chain in and out now. All right, so very cool. I think you can really hear what I'm talking about there by just having the drums up and just being able to really listen to what it does to one instrument. Again, this is applicable to anything. You could do it to your bass, your vocals, your guitars, whatever you like. So here, something that I will often do is after my compression, I will go in with a little bit of EQ, a little bit of saturation or distortion, or really whatever else you like. Don't be afraid to experiment after your compression on your parallel chain, because you can get some very, very interesting tones for whatever instrument you are applying it to. All right, so that's it for me. My name is Pete with MixBetterNow.com. As always, I appreciate your time. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and I will catch you next time.